Welcome back to the Better Learning Podcast. We are continuing our conversations at EDspaces in Columbus, Ohio. We hope you're enjoying this series, and let's dive back in. We are back with our EDspaces recording here in Columbus, talking about Radically Student-Centered. We have our next guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself, a little bit about her, and we'll get going.
Good morning, Matt. I'm Stephanie Matthews, Executive Director of A Tribe for Jazz. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is around preserving the legacy, advancing the future of jazz through visual storytelling, live and virtual performances, education, and community engagement.
And when was this founded? I want to hear just a little bit.
We are 4 years old. We were founded in 2021 during the middle of the pandemic. We came out really strong with a cinematic performance film that won awards and traveled all over the world. And we bring people into jazz in a lot of different ways.
Awesome. And I want to hear that fun fact. You got a fun fact for me?
Do I have a fun fact? So I played trumpet from 5th grade to 12th grade, and then I don't have the chops for it anymore.
That's funny. I actually played a little bit of trumpet. I ended up, when I was in band in school, I ended up going percussion. That was the route I took because of the same thing. I don't have the lips for it, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I always wanted to be a drummer, so I'm jealous.
Love it. So we are asking all of our guests, and we want to kind of hear a bunch of different perspectives today on what does radically student-centered mean to you?
Radically student-centered. Gosh, that's a bold statement. For us in our work at the Jazz Lab, which is one of our educational programs I'll tell you more about, it is culturally relevant STEM learning. Radically centered means bringing it back to the youth so that you get greater engagement. If it's culturally relevant and they feel like I can see myself in this work, I can identify with it. However it is that you tie that to the students that you're working with, you're going to get greater engagement. And so for us, radically, that's it. It's got to be that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I want to hear a little bit more about your work real quick. I want to kind of hear, and we're asking everybody, how does radically student-centered apply to your work? How does that kind of apply every day for you?
100%. So through our Jazz Lab program, we use jazz principles to teach STEM learning. So it's arts integrated STEM. And so we centralize students by, everything is immersive, everything is hands-on. We want to understand, are they feeling like their voices heard in the space when we're doing surveys? It's not just like, about questions about engagement. It's about, well, how can we truly improve this to make this more relevant for you and your life? Also, too, radically centered is, there's jazz music has this like really powerful historicity, right? And we can tie it from not only just the far, far past, but all the way up to Kendrick Lamar. And so they see themselves in a lot of ways in everything that we do. And so Jazz Lab is a pretty powerful program. Like I said, it's hands-on, it's immersive, it's around sciences of sound, physics like vibration, pitch, frequency. Kids get to learn about these science terms through the anatomy of the instrument. They get to try different instruments. They get to explore and discover. And then we do things like improvisational design lab, which is led by a mechanical engineer. So we're very cross-disciplinary. And then, one of our other labs is around virtual reality. So they get to make music in virtual reality using digital instruments. So we're tying sciences and engineering and technology in really interesting ways to get a high level of engagement, collaboration, and really to spark hope, especially in children in underserved communities.
Yeah, and it sounds like, kind of leading into my next question is, and it sounds like you kind of already touched the surface on it a little bit. How do you see radically student-centered, that mindset kind of shifting in your work over the next 5 to 10 years? You kind of touched on it with like maybe the virtual reality aspect. I've been hearing a lot, obviously, about that over the last really probably 2 to 3 years. But I mean, maybe even deeper than that, or I would love to get your perspective on just virtual reality too. But how do you kind of see that mindset shifting and just evolving over the next, 5 to 10 years?
So the reality is I feel like there has to be a massive shift in the education space in terms of how we are engaging in teaching young learners. They grew up on devices, right? We have to embrace that more. We can't, move away from that. And being on your device, and what I've seen is like, sometimes they're engaging, they're being creative. They're using apps, they're making music, they're tapping into all of those things. And it takes educators to be able to step back and look and say, oh, you know what, this isn't, they're not messing around. This is a possible career path. This is audio engineering. This is, whatever it ends up being, composing or, video game design or whatever. And it's really kind of tapping into what it is that they're truly saying, what they're interested in, and then be thinking about like those possible career paths and then make those connections through lesson plans, through, what we call it problem-based learning, opportunities or whatever that is. But it's really centering them and what they're saying in the equation. They have to be so there's an organization called the Student Stakeholder. I think they're so fascinating because a lot of people don't bring the student in as a stakeholder.
Mm.
And so if they're not a part of the conversation, the development, it's who are we doing this for?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's I don't want to get into it because I've definitely gotten into my perspective on radically student centered multiple times. But that you're digging into like exactly how I feel. And in my work, that's something that we always talk about. Like in being radically student centered, we have to have the student voice in every aspect of that. So you touched on a little bit about obviously where you see the future going. I'd love to kind of hear from your guys' nonprofit, and you've kind of been saying like these new career paths that students are experiencing. What are you guys doing to kind of support that, and how do you kind of see that part evolving as well through your organization?
Absolutely. Great question. So for us, through our Jazz Lab program, career awareness and career exploration is a huge part of every opportunity that the young people get to experience through these labs that they're rotating in. And we went so far as to connect the work with career tech centers because it's a natural handoff. So we're living in the middle school space, sweet space, 6th through 8th grade. You can really spark them, be a catalyst. People remember back, people who go on to do like whatever, can look back to middle school and say, oh, you know what? It was that moment, And so that's why we want to live in that space. But the natural handoff, of course, going to high school would be the career techs.
Yeah.
And so they have career clusters. They have that. It's so well developed that, we're saying, here are these unique and interesting opportunities. Try, explore, fail fast, iterate. Let's get you up to speed on how to do this, step in comfortably. And then when you get ready to go to ninth grade, there, engineering could be your pathway.
Yeah. You know what? I grew up in a small rural district here in Columbus. Actually outside of Columbus. You might know of it, Centerburg schools. Yeah. So, but I'm always so intrigued hearing, coming to these conferences, hearing about like the work that you're doing. There's so much that, more possibility than what we had, at least when I was a kid, and that wasn't very long ago. I love what you're doing. I love that you keep a radically student-centered approach in your work, and we're super, super happy to have you on our conversations here this week at EDspaces. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining us for this special EDspaces edition of the Better Learning Podcast. We hope today's conversation sparked new ideas and reminded you just how powerful student-centered learning environments can be. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and share it with someone who's passionate about improving education. And as always, keep pushing forward, keep rethinking what's possible, and keep making learning better, one space at a time. We'll see you in the next episode.